guys, we're back on Soak It Up. My name is Maria Zepeda. Today I'm here with Jacob, and he's going to be telling us a little bit about his missionary work in Africa. So Jacob, you've been to Africa for mission work twice now, right?
Yes. Went back in 2017, and then again in 2020, I believe it was. So 2017, and then 2019. So I've been there twice, 4 weeks each time. So.
Wow, that is a long time. Where in Africa was it that you went?
So if you're looking at the map, it's almost right in the middle of Africa. You've got Central Africa, but right below Central Africa, you've got the Congo. And then just west of the Congo, you've got the Republic of the Congo. So those are the two countries that we're currently working in right now, the Democratic Republic of the Congo and the Republic of the Congo, which is right there under Central Africa. So right there in the middle heart of Africa is where we're working right now.
So like dense jungle area.
Yeah. If you look at the topography maps of of Africa, you see that you've got savanna up in the top of Africa, and then down in the southern part. But then right there in the middle, right where the equator is, you've got lots of dense jungle. Mm-hmm. So we're right there in the Congo rainforest, which is actually the second largest rainforest in the world, only second to the Amazon rainforest. Wow. It also has the second largest river, the Congo River, which is only second to the Amazon River. So as far as jungles, rainforests, it's very dense and a very big rainforest right there. So it's literally right on the equator. So it's very humid and hot.
Oh, that sounds awful. I do not like the humidity. But what inspired you to go on that trip in the first place?
Yeah, so I actually grew up in a missionary-minded church, and we had a whole wall at church that had missionaries from China, missionaries to all different places and parts of the country, and they would come in and they would give a little update on what was going on in their mission field, on how things were going, and the churches that they were operating in, and what they were able to do for the people that were in those areas. And not once did I ever feel called to go to any mission field, honestly. Yeah. And it was kind of weird. I would see, some of them would actually be like, wow, you've got kids there, you've got families there. And you could see, the struggle that they were going through and the sacrifice that they were making to be in these third world countries, move from, the United States of America and willingly go there. And I would think to myself, wow, look at what they're doing for Christ, and how big this is for them, and how important it is that they're willing to literally sacrifice their livelihood to go here. And I would think, how come I don't feel convicted? How come I don't feel compelled to go? And I never did, not for one of them at all. And so, I concluded in my mind that missions just wasn't for me, that, if God was ever to call me, he would actually call me. And it's not like I, desperately wanted to go. I just never felt a calling. Yeah. But to answer your question, when, after I was married for a couple years, actually it was within our first year of marriage, I met a guy that was doing mission work. And the way that he was doing it was a little bit different. It wasn't with an organization that was going to the same area over and over again. He had literally said, hey, I've been to this country with an organization, but I see a need for these people that nobody's going to, that there's no missionary that's going there. Yeah. He even talked to his organization, and he was like, hey, there's these people that are on the other side of the country. All the missionaries go to the one, the southern part and where the capital is, and but nobody goes up to the jungle because it's hard to get up there. So honestly,
these people are unreached.
Yeah, there's nobody that goes up there right now, and he wanted to reach them. Mm-hmm. And when I started to hear that, it's like, wow, I see that there's true passion behind that, and I see that not to dismiss any of the other missionaries that I grew up with. It's just that this guy had a little bit passion that I saw within him, and I didn't feel like I was called to those people, but I felt like I was called to go with him, because the way that it happened with that is he felt called. He knew he was going there, but nobody was going with him. Nobody within any organization would back it. Our government even said, we won't back you if you go there. If you go there, yeah, you go there. We're not backing you. We're not helping you if anything happens. And he's like, God called me there. I'm going there no matter what. And I had known him for, a year or two, and we were doing ministry together. We were getting pretty close, and I felt God just call me, and he said, hey, you're going with him. You're going for him because this is where God's called him. So this was his calling that God put upon his life, but God called me to that gentleman. He called me to be there with him, and that's what actually ultimately called me. So it wasn't even the calling of missions. It was the calling here with him, and it was specifically him is the reason that I went there.
Wow.
Yeah.
So yeah, and that sounds like it inspired you to go in a different way. Like you grew up in that place where, you're around people who are doing missionary work or who are supporting people doing missionary work. And sounds like you kind of made that decision already, like, oh, that's not for me. You never felt called.
Yeah.
So this kind of came about in a roundabout way, and that is really cool. So you had a family then when you decided to go. Obviously, you still do, and it's growing. So congratulations on that. But how was it, making that decision? 4 weeks, right? That's a long time. Making that decision to leave for that long.
Yeah, it was. Getting ready to go took a year. It takes a lot of expenses. We had one child at the time, and we're expecting our fifth right now. So we've definitely added on to the family since then. But that first time that I went, I had actually, we weren't making a lot of money. We were, I was faced with, this is how much airfare costs. This is how much, this is the supplies you need to bring. And we're going into the jungle. You don't just want to, go with some cheap, gear. You want to get some decent stuff that you're going in there with. So I started looking at the costs, and, it was upwards of $10,000 that I really needed to raise to go. So we did a couple things for that. My wife called every church in Cincinnati. I put a PowerPoint slideshow together, and so I went to different churches around Cincinnati, kind of talked about what we were doing there, how I was called to go with the gentleman that I go with. His name's Dwayne. And, and we would get, love offerings from them that would send us away. At the same time as that, I had preached at a particular church quite a few times, and they invited me to come down and preach, long term for a couple of years, actually. And we prayed about it. And, God showed us that they actually, they were like, hey, we're not that big, but we can pay you a small amount. And, we prayed about it, and my wife and I, and we came to, God said, like, this is how I'm paying for the trip. So they would pay a small amount weekly, and I would, put it into account, and that's what paid for my airfare. That's what paid for my gear. That's what paid for the cash that I brought down there to be able to, provide. We do like axes and shovels and machetes and rice and salt, and we're going there to bring the gospel. But as the scripture says, we also want to meet the physical needs as well. We want to be able to provide those things, so that takes some money. Because we weren't backed by any kind of organization or church or anything like that, we had to come up with that money ourselves. So there was a lot of prep in that, but we were trusting in God a lot, and
He provided.
Yeah, He provided for that.
That's amazing.
Financially, we were fine because we were backed by one, that church that I was preaching at, but then also she got me into quite a few churches that I was able to go and present to.
Wow, how was it preparing yourself mentally and physically?
I knew that it was on the equator, so. There was two ways that I knew I needed to prepare. One was physically. Two was spiritually. So maybe we mentally make that the spiritual aspect of it. So physically, I knew that this was on the equator. I knew that it was going to be, I was going to be carrying everything that I needed on my back. So I knew I had to be in shape. So I did do a lot of running prior to it. And I would even run with a backpack on or hike with a backpack on with an excessive amount of weight in there, up to 50 plus pounds, just to prepare, because I didn't want to be totally out of breath and not able to preach the gospel. I didn't know what I was going to expect, and by doing this, it was right, because we would hike all day, get somewhere at 11 o'clock at night. There would be whole villages that had invited all the villages around that would be waiting for us.
Wow.
And whether we got there at 6 p.m. or 11 p.m. or 1 p.m., they expected the gospel. They expected to hear what we were there for. So the later we got there, the later we would preach, and we would give them the gospel. We'd be baptizing all the way into the wee hours of the morning. So I needed that physical preparation to be able to do that. The other aspect was the spiritual aspect of it. I knew that, the enemy would be coming against my family. I knew that the enemy would be coming against me as far as being away from home for that long, being newly married, expecting or having our first child. So spiritually, I did a lot of preparations through prayer, through scripture reading. I would write down verses that I would keep on my phone and in a little Bible that I brought down there with me, so that while I was there, I would meditate on those scriptures. I would meditate on those prayers that I put together, that God had given me in the months prior to me leaving. So I needed to be ready both physically and spiritually, because as the scripture says, don't I think Paul said it to Timothy, that we can't grow weary in well doing. So it's like we were going there for 4 weeks. It's not like we were working for 5 days and had a couple days off. Yeah. We were around the clock, 100% doing ministry every day, all day. There was no, hey, we're going to take a day off. We were in the mission field. We were in the jungle. We were sleeping in the trees, living with the tribes people. And it was exhausting. And exhausting physically, but then also exhausting mentally and spiritually, just because we were going around the clock. So that preparation was big.
There's no break. There's no, you're right in it. There's no time. Even, at night, you're literally in the jungle. You don't get to go to your bed. You don't get to, the day of work is done, I get to go home. It was for a whole month, that it is very treacherous, for sure. So obviously, they don't speak the same language, the tribes people. So you guys, how many of you guys were there that spoke English?
So there was an interpreter that Dwayne had met through an organization when he was there previously in the same country. That interpreter had felt the same calling to reach these people, but he wasn't being heard either. So he ended up being our interpreter. He left that organization, and he still works with us to this day. When we're there, he's our interpreter while we're there. And times like when we're in the States, he's over there doing many missions and going in places, and we're funding all that he's doing. And has his own wife, and he's having, his kids are around the same age as my kids. We're having kids at the same time. So he is our voice over there, whether we're there or whether we're back here in the States. So when we went, it was Dwayne and myself. We were the only ones from the United States. We were the only ones who spoke English beside our one interpreter. So he did a lot of work, because everywhere we went, we would both preach. I would preach, Dwayne would preach, and then he would be interpreting for both of them, of course, and then he would preach after we were done.
Oh, wow.
So he was, needless to say, very exhausted every day.
Yeah. So it was just the three of you guys that spoke English. How was it? I know you'd done preaching before. You said you preached a small church for a little while, but how was it preaching through an interpreter?
Very difficult. It was hard, because when you're presenting any kind of presentation, whether you're preaching or whether you're doing a speech, everything comes to your mind and you just want to let it out. Otherwise, you kind of you miss what you were saying. You lose your train of thought. Yeah. So it was difficult to cope with, but I began to, and I'm not one big on, going off of notes or anything like that, but I would start by making little notes to be able to be like, hey, this is where we are. And then he would do his thing, and then I would, go again. Yeah. But he, when it comes to interpreters, he's very good. He can almost go at the same time that you're talking in some times, because he hears what you're saying and he can interpret it, but he's also very in tune with the Spirit. So, it's not just the language barrier, it's a culture barrier. So the way that we say things is not necessarily the way that they say things. So he can, interpret that in a way that they can understand what I'm trying to say. So he's a very good interpreter, but that was challenging. It was hard to get through that barrier, but over practice, it got a little bit easier, but never got, completely normal.
Yeah. I can imagine, because when you are trying to speak, you're trying to get something across. It is really hard when you have to stop, pause, wait for a minute. Losing your train of thought, that would make it much more difficult. But that is really cool that he ended up being able to go with you guys, and it seems like it really just worked out. God kind of made everything work out with the finances, bringing someone... going out there with Dwayne so that he didn't end up having to go by himself, and then that interpreter too, without that, it just wouldn't have worked out. Not being able to communicate across. So you've gone to Africa twice, same place, right, for both your mission trips that you went to?
The first time we were just in the DRC, Democratic Republic of the Congo, and then we moved over to the Republic of the Congo. We're looking to go into Central Africa. The need is just so great. Every time we go there, we kind of go through the areas that we've gone before, and we've seen great movements in those areas. There's one story that there was a lady that was, we were leaving the first time, and this lady had an issue, and she had actually left her family. They had sent her away, and they said, hey, you're either going to go here and you're going to get better, or you're going to die. So they had basically sent her away to die. The culture's different there. Here, you go to the hospital, we're going to medicate you, we're going to do everything we can, but they don't have that there. They're in the forest, and a lot of times they think like you've done something wrong, or you're cursed if you have a disease or you're sick or anything. So they want to get rid of you as soon as possible. So this lady was somewhere where she was, they were hoping that she would maybe get better, but it was not going that way. We had gone through, we had prayed over her, laid hands on her. She got miraculously healed. And the second time that we came to Africa, we ended up working closely, and he became actually another partner of ours while we're down there, that he continues to work on things, which is this lady's husband. Pupasala is his name, and he is one of our partners down there. He doesn't speak English, but he does a lot of the work there while we're not there, and a lot of the preparations for the missions in the jungle. And it was his wife. But they actually, in that village, to get what I was saying, is when we went back the second time, they had put a church up in that town. They had no gospel that was there. They didn't know Christ. They had, they practiced witchcraft. And when we went back the second time, they were... The whole village, because she got healed, recognized Christ. They recognized him as the one true God, built a church, and we actually got to worship in that church with them and do baptisms and everything the second time that we went back. So, that second time we went back, we're able to visit those areas, and then even venture into new areas that we were not in previously.
Wow. So you were able to, that was one of my questions, actually. You kind of answered another question I had. You were able to connect with the people that were out there, even, though they didn't speak the same language. And
oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. There's a lot of people, actually, that we connect with. It's cool because our interpreter is the only one that speaks English. I mean, we had another interpreter one time that spoke English that we just kind of hired that was over there, but everybody else doesn't speak English, and I've actually created some intimate relationships with them. Like, I haven't gone on every trip. I went on the first two with Dwayne, and God called me to go with him because there was nobody there. God has since brought quite a few men who have joined us in this mission to reach the lost in that area, and they've taken that torch essentially, and So I didn't go the last couple times, but every time that somebody goes, like I end up on the phone, like, hey, it's Lindy, and I get to talk to him, and
Wow.
we don't even share the same language, but we're able to talk through the interpreter over the phone, and it's cool to be able to have a relationship with somebody that you don't even share any similarities with,
Yeah.
except for that you're a brother in Christ. Like that's literally the only thing that you share.
So you are actually still able, or like in communication with them sometimes?
Oh yeah. We, technology is crazy. You live in the middle of the jungle, but have a phone that when you travel into a place that has connection, you can get some messages out.
Wow.
Yeah, like through different apps and forms of technology. I do message back and forth, and have even done video calls and send photos to people that I don't even speak the same language.
Yeah.
But through interpretation of translators, we can talk.
Wow. That is really cool that you were able to connect with them. That was one of my questions, was were you able to connect with them even though their language is different? That's really cool how that ended up working out, and that even they're now helping you out and helping spread the gospel where they are. That is really cool. I have a bunch more questions, but we are about done with time.
Okay.
Would you want to come back on here sometime?
Yeah, sure.
Get some more questions. I definitely want to hear that story. I know it's definitely a dangerous place out there. There are a lot of animals that are very dangerous. We don't have time right now, but next time we can share that story that you told me about with the hippo.
Oh, yeah. That's a good one.
It is a good one. So stay tuned for next time, you guys, to hear the rest of Jacob's story and his missionary work. And we will see you all next time. Don't forget to leave your comments down below, hit share, and subscribe. And we'll see you guys later.